Hello and welcome to Cause and Effect, where today we're going to have a look at some graphical organisers you could use to go from some lower order thinking to some higher order thinking. We're going to focus on English and Lit, Science, LOT and SOS as possible areas, and I hope we can learn some great stuff today. Alright, I'll kick off with this one here. In this area we're going to have a look at recall and explain to show the cause of what happens at, say, stage 1, so then make it to go to stage 2, make it to go to stage 3. I'll just change my pointer option here. There we go. The big idea is just to show that there's a systematic step for each of the hops as it goes along. Students can write above it maybe some ticks or crosses just to see if they agree with it, or they might do some steps down the bottom, make it bounce the other way, about why they don't agree with it. The idea is just to see that there's a connection between the first stage going to the second, going to the third. Not meant to be a sort of a circular motion, just sort of a linear straight across. How can we bump this into some higher order stuff? What I've got in here is I've then made the diagrams, oh sorry to get rid of that for you. On here we've got that you can make the diagram squares just visually bigger each time. Across here all the stages look roughly the same size. What I do here is I try to make the boxes just get progressively bigger as they go along to show that there's an importance of the step becoming more important, so they can visually see that there's like a bigger box and that's why it's more important. I also try to push for some justification. Can you just tell me why this box is important in stage 1 with an example? And then as you move on to stage 2, can you tell me why the box is getting bigger? Why does it visually get bigger? You could do this with boxes, you could do this with circles or triangles. The idea is that for them to justify why things get bigger and visually see it as they go through. You could use this for English with stories to show with different scenes as they jump from a tone or tenor as the way it comes across and as the energy starts to get larger. Maybe in science as the way chemical reactions start to progressively get bigger or smaller. So you can make them big boxes down to small boxes with the cause and effects. History and geography, why is the event getting progressively bigger? And even if you wanted to, maybe you could do like a small circle followed by a medium-sized circle followed by a small circle again, just to show the effects following through from going one to the next. And that one event might be more critically important because the box is bigger itself. You can use this in a ton of ways. I like using it just to show the importance through size. We'll jump on to another one, Okay, on here we're going to have a look at recall. So we're recalling all the factual data, and we're going to start contrasting them. So actually showing that there's for on this side and an against on the other. These sort of things sort of bring back to the old Lorenz force field analysis, if you've heard of that one. You can have all of your points driving towards sort of a conflict area in the middle. You could have all the restraining points pointing back in the other. And the idea is to focus on the factual. What are the real things that are not really disputable, but we all agree that these are common ground? This is trying to push into the lower order, just the recall areas. And to push it into the higher order stuff, what I try to do is I start having a look at the moral angles between these. So morally, why is this better? And morally, why is this against? I like having an up arrow and a down arrow because sometimes that sort of pushes the old, devil's advocate sort of approach, maybe up in the sky for what is the maybe the religious aspect to going up for it. Allowing the students to then putting in their morals behind each of the bit helps them sort of contrast and also judge why this was a more of a compelling reason to contrast and show the cause and effect rather than just the factual stuff. So I'm sort of going for the data-driven side and then going into the moral side to get that brain to open up and also to allow rich conversations to happen between the students as they talk about each of the points. We'll have a look at another one. Over here, this is sort of following your tree and plant sort of idea, that I'll show stage 1 with the part A and part B as being the important bits, just to recall them. And it's sort of following like the first one I showed you. So stage 1 goes into stage 2 with some roots below or some branches. The idea here is then to start going into the higher order thinking, which might be what's the overall theme that might be in stage 1 with the parts, and then stage 2, what's the theme, stage 3, what's the theme or the common idea, what's the event that might be happening in the story, what's some sort of common process that's happening together in the scientific reaction or in the concepts in biology or maybe even physics. What's the common thread that runs through all of the ideas? Maybe in LOTE, they might have a look at sort of the grammar themes that are coming together, or the cultural aspect that's getting pushed through the language. Maybe in SOS, you could talk about the event that occurred and how it actually drove from stage 1 to stage 2 into stage 3, and say if the Nazis were getting involved, or the American Revolution, how the revolutionaries looked at it, or maybe look how the government sides looked at it. The idea is grouping them by themes and then having them maybe in that sort of size idea again about which is the most important. So you could do this from a small box into a bigger box, into an even larger box too. It's just getting the brain to go, how do the connections come together, and then visually picturizing it, there's a word for you, but putting it together into a picture in the brain for the brain to organize it. Just some ideas for you. Try the last one. Alright, this is like my old favorite with the circular logic. So I want to see how the steps come together. So rather than just going across like a line, how does it actually follow this pathway to go round? So it follows a sort of circular logic to restart again. This one's good for the students because they can see why it goes from here to here to here, but then why it comes back to stage 1. The way I ramp it up into higher order thinking is to put these sort of gears and cogs, that if this turns this way with its motion, maybe you could do from the leftists versus the rightists perspective in politics or in economics or business, with the suppliers versus the competitors or the consumers, and then the second stage where it rotates the other way. There must be this sort of logical link about why this one drives the other stage. Rather than just showing that it's a pattern of relationships between both, what's the actual driving forces that cause the gears to actually click and rotate as they go along? Without the linking aspects and the driving aspects between each part, sometimes they can go, I don't fully see the logic, but having the grinding gears in each of the stages can show there's a logical progression about how the cause and effect's happening. Of course, you can put more gears and bigger ones. Sorry, that's a really poorly drawn gear. But I think you get the idea. From stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3 and to stage 4, and you can make the gears get progressively bigger to show the more importance of the relationship. You can even make them just the same size to show how they're grinding and locking together to cause one big engine to come in place. I found this works really well with a sort of stack and sign logical sort of mind thinking, and the way students can learn, they can go, I can actually see the logical connections, how they join together. These are just some of the ideas I wanted to share with you, and oh, it's back again, isn't it? I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again in another video.